Welcome, most amazing artists, to Grid Drawing with Miss Sarnowski. Today, we are going to look at a few different pictures of architecture buildings. You're going to choose one and then transfer the image and grid to a fresh sheet of paper. Let's get started. Now, I'm going to show a way to grid where you can really make it any size. So you can either choose a smaller piece of paper, like a regular 9 by 11, or you can choose a larger paper, but you just might need to measure it out. Now, I have a few different options here of different famous buildings to grid. The Eiffel Tower, Mayan temples. Now, here's the deal. Some of these are a little bit more challenging, so if you would want to go ahead, I'm going to choose the Taj Mahal. I would say this is probably the most challenging one because there's more details and it's symmetrical. So, sliding this down a little bit, I can notice that the paper is going to be divided in half and in half again. Now, you might think, okay, I could just fold the paper in half, but then your paper's folded, and that really just doesn't look as nice. So I'm going to go ahead, measure out my paper, making sure I line up my ruler to the very edge and 0, and I can tell that this sheet is 12 inches, so I'm just going to make a little bit of a mark at 6. Now, the trick with making even and straight lines is that you have to measure twice and draw your line once. So again, I'm going to put my ruler up here. I'm going to make a little bit of mark at 6. And now, once I connect these two dots, again, lining it up, holding my ruler with a few different fingers so it doesn't wiggle about, and then drawing that line. Now, I'm drawing very lightly because this is a grid line. It's not really part of my drawing, so I don't want to really see it. It's eventually going to be erased. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Again, I measure up, it's 9 inches. I divide by 2, which is 4.5. Make a mark. Each time making sure that I line it up to the edge. Make a mark. And then draw the line across. Now, if you're using a larger paper, the trick is to measure 3 times so that you have 3 dots going across your paper and you can get a straight line. I'm going to pause it here while I make additional lines in boxes. I don't need to make as many boxes as on here on this worksheet, but also if you have gridded your own photo, you do want your amount of boxes to match the amount of boxes on your grid. I'll check back in with you in just a second. You can see that I added 2 more sets of lines to divide my paper in half yet again. I'm going to start with step number 1 up here, and that's really a box that comes slightly above the cross in the middle of my paper, right? So you might want to use a ruler to do this. I'm going to go for it and just sketch it first and then maybe clean up my lines later with a ruler. So I'm going to go right above, looking at my grid boxes and using my other lines as guiding lines. So I know that this box doesn't quite come right to this edge of my paper. And on the other side too. I want to try to make sure that everything in this is symmetrical. That's why this one is a challenge. Then I'm going to follow my grid lines down, right, so that again it's not quite touching the bottom of my paper because the Taj Mahal has some different steps. This is going to help you get the proportion of your building correct. Can we all say proportion? Nice job. Proportion means the size of something in relation to each other. So I want you to imagine right now if your house had a very, very tiny door, almost like a fairy door, right? It would not be the correct proportion because you are a normal-sized kid or an adult, right? So that has to do with proportion, is size of things in relation to each other. I moved on to step number 3, right? So I did this little archway here. I'm going to pause, keep going, and then come back when I have more to show you. You can see some of my progress here. I still left the grid lines nice and light, and I've been drawing my building a little bit darker so you can see it. That may help you distinguish between what's grid lines and what's not. I'm going to keep adding some detail, and again, check back in with you when I've made some more progress. At this point, you can see the Taj Mahal has started to take shape. Right? I've started to add some of the smaller details after I added the larger part of the building. Right? Next, I would go on and create the towers. It's very important in a grid drawing that you take your time and that you're checking against the grid so that you know that you're putting your details in the right spot after you draw things that are the correct size and proportion. All right, good luck today. Most amazing artist, happy creating.